you again for joining us. At this time, I am delighted and pleased to introduce Dr. Carla DeBose-Simons, Humanities Professor, who will be moderating the program from this point forward. Thank you.
Hey everybody, so I just had a couple of brief remarks because the majority of today is going to be hearing from my esteemed colleagues. So I'm happy to be here with you all this afternoon as we commemorate the signing of the American Constitution. Constitution Day actually was yesterday. Our Constitution was signed on September 17, 1787. Constitution Day as a federal holiday was established in 2004 to celebrate our Constitution. But it's also a day devoted to civic education across many institutions of learning. Today's program will focus on fostering a better understanding of the rights protected by the American Constitution. In a statement given yesterday, SUNY Chancellor John King said, ensuring students become well-rounded, civically engaged members of society is a core component of a SUNY higher education. The Constitution Day Planning Committee hopes that today's event will contribute to this mission. This year, our Constitution Day program centers our esteemed faculty, scholars of political science, criminal justice, history, and the law. And we will be in conversation with you, the audience, in a quiz type of format. So we were hoping—
Don't worry, you won't be getting a grade.
We were hoping to get some comments from our president and provost if they arrive. A little later, we'll make sure that they have an opportunity to welcome you and give their remarks and greetings. But in lieu of that, I think we should get started to make sure that we have the full time available for you all to engage with this faculty panel. Oops. So I actually want to introduce my colleagues, my friends, and these really intelligent, right, experts, right? So I am a professor of history in the humanities department. My colleague, Gary Klein, is also a historian. He is acting as facilitator for today. We also have Professor Antonio Baiz, who is in the social sciences department. He's a professor of political science. Professor Cynthia Haycock, who is an attorney, also from paralegal studies, and Professor Rebecca Zwick, who is from our criminal justice department and also paralegal studies. So we just realized that our provost, Dr. Vanessa Morris, has arrived. So Dr. Morris, if you would just want to give a few remarks, sorry to put you on the spot, as soon as you walked in.
Good morning.
Hey, it's great to see you all here. This is live-ish. You guys can hear me either way, probably, right? So it's nice to see you all here. And this is I think, a very important event, and it's made even more important by every minute going by these days. But it's always an important event, and it's really, incredibly critical, I think, to your education to learn about the Constitution and needs and hopefully be inspired by it also. I want to thank the organizers of the event. Talking to the mic, okay, but it's not on. Is there something I should do? Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Back row? Yeah, good. Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
loud and clear. All right. So I want to start by just thanking the organizers of the event. You guys do a terrific job. And it's very much appreciated. And it's so, I'm glad that we can take this time to focus on the Constitution. Hopefully it's present in your classes in various ways, depending on what your major is. But taking time out to really think about it and discuss it, I think, is really important. So my field is actually education, which is one thing that's not listed in the Constitution or spoken to. The Constitution shapes our lives in so many different ways. But we're very used to living in a society in which legal authority is clear, but its applications and interpretations are often debated. And so we're a little less accustomed to a society where its authority is challenged. My area of expertise is education, which is not mentioned in the Constitution, but powers not delegated by the Constitution fall to the states. And so education is a state responsibility. And that's important for you to know, particularly in the second. I'll explain a little bit more why. But that's always been something that's kind of shaped education and shaped educational policy, which has become even more, I think, present right now as they try to dismantle the Department of Education at the federal level. The 14th Amendment does provide for equal protection under the law, which means the states have to provide education to all on an equal basis. So in this sense, the Constitution does protect your rights to equality in education. The federal government gets involved in education primarily through policies enacted by Congress, and specifically through funding or grant programs that influence the ways in which colleges are supported. And specifically, the federal student aid program is federally funded and is by far the largest federal impact on higher education, on the order of $27 to $30 billion annually that goes to students, but also helps colleges manage their costs so that we can provide opportunities and equality in education for students. There are other grant programs, though, that also help institutions. And those programs are now being cut back in certain ways, and grants are being ended. That's impacted the SUNY system, and it's impacting our college directly as well. So the two biggest ones are Title III and Title V, and they are intended to build capacity in higher educational institutions so that we're better able to make sure that every student has equal access and equality of opportunity within higher education. So we have a Title V grant here, and that's been impacted. So that is now, we've been told, going to end in 2026, which is next year. So that's on the order of millions. So every single college at this point in time is really being impacted. Thankfully, student aid, the Pell Grant in particular, seems to be off the table, but that you should know that that is one way in which the federal government really shapes our lives here in college. So with that, I'm going to turn your opportunity to learn over to the real experts here on the panel. And I want to thank you all for coming, listening, and participating, because this is just amazingly important. And I hope that you realize that this is part of everyone's lives. It's not just information. You're not just soaking in information, you're living it. So absorb it, enjoy it, and be glad that you can be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Morris, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us and give us greetings. I also see our president, Dr. Miles, just entered the room. Dr. Miles, if you would just give us some greetings. Sorry to put you on the spot just as you walked in. I know your schedule is always jam-packed as well, so we're so happy that you could spend some time here with us this afternoon.
So, Professor, good afternoon, everyone. My apologies for being tardy. There are quite a few things that end up on my schedule. So thank you, Provost Morris, for kicking things off. And thank you so much to our faculty once again for putting together a marvelous panel. It's an exciting day, Constitution Day, one that gives us an opportunity to pause and reflect and to really contemplate where we are, where we've been, and where we might need to go. So it's a big document that has had not been without controversy, but also has provided a significant guidance and structure for many of the things that help us to govern ourselves and to actually set up the structure of our government and our governance system in America. That doesn't mean it can't be challenged, and that we've seen that happen. So I'm really delighted to know of your interest. Thank you to the faculty who had your classes come here today to learn about this topic. And I think that probably the key thing is that it's a living document. It's not simply static, and it does give us some things to ponder as we think about our rights and our responsibilities, our obligations. And so, how many of you are poli-sci majors? This is part of your coursework, political science.
I saw people, where are, anybody?
Okay, I was a political science major. Don't test me on constitutional law, though I'm not an attorney. Or history majors. It's very important that we understand. Yes, there you go. English majors, maybe? I know there's a ton of English majors or people, folks. Very good. Lots of research, things to be able to discuss and even debate and deliberate on when it comes to the way our government and our society is structured and the roles that we can play and the rights that we have therein. And so I had a few notes, but I won't go into the details of them. I just think it's important to try to understand what the context was when the Constitution was originally constructed and the different societal impacts that have influenced its evolution and the changes that have moved along with it. So I'm grateful to see our faculty here, who I know do have expertise with this document and the way we live it. So thank you for letting me offer a few words, and happy learning. Continue to keep your minds open and think and recognize that this is for you. It's about your citizenship, your participation in our society. And it's good that you understand it, that you study it, that you know it, and that you can contribute to what we're doing in this United States of America that we have and in this world that we live in. So those are my remarks. Have a wonderful learning experience today. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to get started with our quiz event. So we are hoping to create an interactive event for you all. If you could scan the QR code that is up on your screen, you should be taken to a Mentimeter survey, which is going to guide our conversation today. So I'm going to give you a minute to scan it, get into it, and then I will present so that we can see the questions that you are seeing and engage with your answers. All right, so Dr. Klein is going to facilitate while I work some tech.
Great. Thank you very much. And it's great to have you all here today for a celebration of our Constitution. And interestingly enough, I had a history instructor who once said to me, in the study of history, timing isn't everything, but it's damn important. And how appropriate that is that we are actually meeting today. Earlier this morning, I actually got a text message from a friend of mine who, in light of recent events, and for those of you who are not aware, a right-wing conservative commentator was assassinated, Charlie Kirk, last week. Yesterday, Jimmy Kimmel, a comedian, was pulled off the air. Hello, I lost Mike. Hello. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I'll just be loud. was pulled off the air by local affiliates throughout the United States because of his uttering certain political views. And for those of you who don't know, because this is fresh off the presses earlier this morning, a Texas man was arrested for plotting to assassinate mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani of New York City. And for those who don't know, Mamdani lies on the left wing of the political spectrum. And so my friend texted me and said, "Do you think the Constitution is under attack?" And my response was, the Constitution has always been under attack. This is nothing new in that respect. The question for us is, how has the Constitution been attacked? It could be attacked by foreign enemies, like in World War II. Without a United States, we're not going to have a Constitution. It could be attacked by government leaders. And it can also be attacked from us as a society when we condone violence against those that we do not agree with. So what I would say to you as students or as general members of society, when you hear somebody who says, hey, you know what, Kirk deserved it, or Mandami deserved it because I don't agree with them, it's important for you not to defend them, even if you don't agree with them, but to defend the Constitution. Because when you allow political violence to be a norm in society, and some of you in this room are well aware of what can happen for those of you who have family or came from countries where people are shot for their political views, that can become the norm in American society. What keeps the Constitution still in place today, even though it has been under attack since the time of our founding, is its vigilant defense by those in society and in leadership. So I say to you, please be vigilant in defense of the Constitution, irrespective of your particular points of view. So with that, thank you. With that in mind, I turn everything over to Professor Dubose. What do we have here?
To what we were talking about, Dr. Klein. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So here's your first question. You guys, it should have on your phone changed for you to vote. Can an employer, okay, because we want to hold the responses. Can an employer restrict the First Amendment rights of an employee's social media posts made outside work hours?
Ooh, good question. I think they're going to get it. I think they're going to get it right. I really do. It's
Can an employer restrict the First
up on the screen.
Amendment social media posts made outside work hours? So far, we have 78 responses. We're up to 83. We'll get to 100 and then we'll look at what you all said. All right, we're at a 104. Vast majority of you said no.
Well, Professor Zwick, would you like to share with everybody the correct answer, please?
Yes, of course they can restrict your speech.
Care to explain why?
No.
And maybe if you could put the microphone just a little bit closer to you, yeah, because we want to hear your booming voices. Professor Haycock, share with us.
On that, it depends on who your employer is, because the First Amendment is designed to restrict government action, to prevent the government from impinging upon your rights. So if you work for the government, you might have more rights than if you work for a private employer. Professor Zwick, we need your response.
I'm shaking my head because I would say not much more. As someone who has worked for the government my entire actual career, those agencies have always been very clear on the naughty jokes that I can or cannot tell, the commentary that I can provide on how my coworker looks or dresses, my political thoughts about a range of things. But to the point, you do have more protections as a government employee. I also do want to take schools out of the equation because the academy, which is what we are all a part of, also operates on some slightly different rules and regulations regarding academic freedom and the encouragement of diverse intellectual views. Back to private employers, you know, these are private companies. You're not compelled to work for them. You don't owe them anything. You're making a choice to work for Amazon or Home Depot or mom and pop's ice cream store. They tell you how to dress. They provide you with a uniform. They tell you you have to wear the uniform. You have to wear a name tag. It's a basic employer-employee relationship. And when you leave work, and understand too, I think it's important to make it clear that a lot of these issues that we're touching on today, not so much immigration, but certainly free speech, this is relatively new and evolving because of social media, right? Not that long ago, 15 years ago, you would have left work, gone to the local restaurant or the bar, complained about this or that politician, and only the people in your immediate circle heard you, right? Only the people in your immediate circle knew that you had this political view. Whether it was a political view, whether it was a racist view, very few people knew about it. Now you check out of Chase Bank, you go home, you get on your social media, and you promote a political view that is very controversial. You promote a racist view. Everybody knows. And then 2 seconds later, they're pulling up, oh, where does Wick work? Chase Bank. And they are writing Chase Bank. And companies don't want that sort of headache.
And to Professor Zwick's point, how many of you remember when you first went on Facebook when you were like real little, right? Yeah. So very interesting case. A man who posted a photo of himself with his buddies at a bar, and he was drinking Bud Light, and he got fired the next day by his boss. Anybody know why he got fired? Anybody want to take a guess? Whoa. That is correct, Professor Scavati. He worked for Coors, and they fired him on the spot. And so understand, private companies have a lot of leeway. They can fire you basically for any reason unless it is against the law, statutory, right? That is very important. Yeah.
The student asked about digital footprint. Could you be fired for something you posted years ago?
There are students who were admitted to college, and once their digital footprint was tracked, if they had said something that the college did not approve of, they've had their admissions rescinded.
Because it speaks to your character. And then I'll let Professor Haycock speak, but I mean, that's a standard in law, the idea of good moral character. For all the criminal justice students who are here, you know, because I literally preach from the pulpit about this all the time. Nothing that you post online is private. And maybe if it's private today, is not going to be private in another 5 years. And it speaks to your character. And if you said or did things that were unkind or hurtful when you were in middle school, why are you still dragging that around with you now? Let it go. Wipe your social media. You're a new person. Start fresh.
Mhm.
But
Mark.
James Gunn, the Superman, he was like fired from Guardians of the Galaxy because controversial tweets he made years prior. And eventually we're looking at it right now, but
Yeah.
it shows you can be fired for, like I said, like you said, as long as it's not illegal. Fire for every reason, as long as it's not illegal.
Correct. Yep.
I think Professor Haycock.
I just wanted to add one thing. There's an early case that I think crystallizes things rather well. The justice writing the opinion said, you've got an absolute right to free speech. You can say whatever you want, but your employer has an absolute right to fire you. So, at what cost? It's about the firing. I also wanted to add that New York is a liberal state, and states are allowed not to cut back on your constitutional rights, but they can offer more protections. In New York, the employer is not allowed to ask for your social media passwords or that kind of information. But if there is public information out there, it's fair game. It's public information. You posted it. Best advice I can give this morning is delete your social media and make that Finsta today.
So I'm gonna move us to the next question that I want you all to vote on, which again is about social media. Can a public school punish students for after-school social media posts using obscene language?
That's a good one.
Obscene, inappropriate, vulgar. Okay.
Think of a four-letter word beginning with F and ending in K, and it's not fork.
Thank you, Professor Clyde.
Everyone knows what the F word is.
So we're at 80, we wanna get to 100. And then we are going to see what you all said. Can a public school punish students for after-school social media posts using obscene language? We're almost there. So most
Want me
of
to
you
take
said
this one?
yes.
You take it.
Some of you said no, it was a portion of you.
Can we reveal the correct answer, please?
Well, there's a recent case in which a cheerleader wasn't selected for the squad, and she went home and posted on social media, basically derogatory comments about the squad with obscene language. And the court said that her speech was protected, that she could not be disciplined from the school. But this, again, it's a public school. They said that was her opinion. She could offer it. And the fact that she used obscenities about the squad was her right to free speech. I think it would be a different question if she was posting something about a school event or a crime at school. But as far as the social media post, again, with a public school and heavy emphasis on public, yeah.
Oh, that's a great, I mean, no, they should not do that. I mean, don't call people names,
Yep.
right? But it's still protected. You know, unless it's a threat, like, oh, I'm gonna do this to that teacher, then that elevates the offense. But generally, no, you can say whatever you
Yeah.
want. I don't,
I think
I
that's
can-
correct.
I can let me throw some just to piggyback off of what my colleague said. The way the courts have ruled on this is based on a precedent from 1967. The Supreme Court ruled in a case called Tinker versus Des Moines. For those of you who may have studied this when you were in high school, this is when students were suspended for wearing black armbands protesting the Vietnam War. And so basically what the court has ruled, and typically courts generally rule that if the speech is political in nature, the greater chance it has of being protected. The court also ruled that a student's constitutional rights do not stop at the schoolhouse door, that the school needs to show that what the student did was, and the term is disruptive to the educational process. So that's one of the reasons why when we have the new advent of social media, the reason why courts oftentimes kind of struggle with this, and there is no clear consensus, is because the argument as to whether or not insulting Professor Klein will disrupt the school, who knows, right? And so one of the things that you learn about your constitutional rights is that in many instances they're fluid. They are dependent on the way courts rule. That said, there are very important precedents that really do matter. Okay. And one of them is political speech. Okay. And in terms of public schools, the courts have been much more vigilant in defending students' rights when it comes to political speech versus non-political speech. Now, have been some notable exceptions to that, but generally speaking, that has been the case.
Yeah, I'm just want for those of you who are online, the student asked, even if you're directing the obscene language towards a faculty member or someone affiliated with the school.
I would
We have
just
another
also
question
note,
actually back here. I just wanted to.
So are the rules different for like colleges versus like high school or middle school? Because you can have like a state college that's like a public school, so.
Yes.
So let me just repeat the question
Yeah.
for those online. So the question was, are the rules different for college versus middle school or high school?
Great question. And the answer is a wholehearted yes. Huge difference. In high school and middle school, you're not a legal adult. And the legal philosophy that's used is something called in loco parentis, that the school kind of acts as your parent. So as a result, that's what gives the school the right to do things that a college would not have the right to do. And then when there are disagreements on those powers and rights, that's when the courts step in.
I just wanted to add something really quick, and that's funny, Professor Klein, because I was just writing in loco parentis. When you said that
Great minds
Your
think
con-
alike.
your constitutional rights don't end at the door is what the schools ruled, except for when they do, because the schools act as in loco parentis, in place of your parents. So for those of you who were in school and you had your locker searched, or you like crotched a brownie or whatever, the school was able to do that. They were able to search your lockers, which is technically a violation of your Fourth Amendment, because they are acting in loco parentis if they think there's a danger to the school. But I'll just close this section by adding, because I think we're moving away from speech in general.
But they're asking great questions.
We do not have hate speech protections in this country. Like there isn't a definition of hate speech. What you think of as hate speech, or what you may think of, is protected under the First Amendment. So when I have heard people say things like, words are violence, they're actually not. I mean, they're not actually, but also legally, they are not. Now, there's a difference, of course, between hate speech, calling you a name, and making a threat. That's different, and hate crimes are a whole different topic. But it's important to bear that in mind, that the framers of our Constitution really did look at us as rational actors who can handle name calling.
So we're going to move on to the next question.
Oh, that's a good one.
Assuming no physical harm to others, do you have a constitutional right to burn the American flag in public?
Gary wants that one. Oh.
So we are at about 63. Do you have the constitutional right to burn the American flag in public, assuming no physical harm to others? So let's take a look. We're almost there. Oh, this is closer.
Are numbers still coming in?
They're still coming in. We're at
Okay.
100. So
10
we have
seconds.
60 saying no, 41 saying yes.
The answer is yes, you do. Who got that right? Okay. Oh, John, let them show off a little bit, Professor DuBose. Okay, who got it wrong? Come on. So this case came out of a protest that took place outside of the Republican National Convention in 1984 in Houston, Texas. And the Supreme Court ruled that even though there was a local law that did not allow the desecration of the American flag, that this was a great example of symbolic speech. And so it was and still is protected under the Constitution. This is why, for those of you who are news junkies, you may have heard President Trump say he wants to ban flag burnings. And so you know the follow-up was not that he would introduce a law to ban it, because that would have been ruled unconstitutional, but that he wants to introduce a constitutional amendment to ban flag burnings, okay? Because the Supreme Court cannot rule a constitutional amendment unconstitutional, for all of you legal junkies here. Okie dokie?
Well, Gary, would you maybe comment on the executive order? Because I think that's why a lot of people got it wrong. The President Trump ordered an executive order talking about it's illegal to burn a flag, or
Right. So what will happen is if every violation or potential violation of somebody's civil liberties cannot be a hypothetical. So what will usually happen is there will be a case, and if that case is enforced, or if that incident is enforced by the government, then it will go through the courts. That is why, gang, for example, did you know it is illegal to eat hamburgers on Sundays in Michigan? Yeah. And you're probably wondering, why haven't we heard about that? That law had existed on the books in Michigan for hundreds of years. That's because nobody's been prosecuted for eating a Big Mac. Okay. But if the state of Michigan attempted to enforce that law by arresting somebody for eating a Whopper, then it would go to the courts and that law would be struck down. So understand there are many, you'd be shocked at the different kinds of laws that are still on the books. And the reason why they're not taken off the books is because they are not enforced. It's when they're enforced that becomes an issue. Okay? Just because a political leader does it, like in this case, an executive order, does not necessarily make it constitutional until the court rules.
I just wanted to add too, that if you're getting these questions wrong, don't feel bad.
Yeah.
We're in very confusing times right now, and there's a lot of information and misinformation swirling around, which is why a day like today is important, and the questions that you're asking are incredibly important. And thank you all for being here.
One wonderful point and wonderfully well taken. I'll take that question just to follow up. And if you disagree with the court decision, that doesn't make you a bad person, right? There are some Supreme Court decisions that are extremely unpopular, and you can feel viscerally strong about it. That doesn't make you, quote unquote, a bad American. Yeah, so someone was arrested for burning the Israeli flag in protest. Wouldn't that have been protected? The answer is, when the person was arrested, they were not arrested for burning the flag or a flag. They were arrested for creating remember, assuming no physical harm. That's very, very, very important. So for example, if I decided to burn, well, I hate the New York Yankees, a New York Yankees pennant, in front of everybody, but I decide to just jump right into the audience and do it. I can't then say, but I was exercising my free speech rights as you guys have burn marks all over you, right? That's something very important. Yep, quick, excellent question. Okay.
Television comedy show have a constitutional right to knowingly portray a government official in an embarrassing and untrue manner. So I'll read it again. Does a television comedy show have a constitutional right to knowingly portray a government official in an embarrassing and untrue manner? A few minutes, because people are voting on this pretty quickly.
And that's my son.
So we are just about at 100. And 85 people said yes, 13 people said no.
Fantastic job, everybody. The answer is yes. And for those in the world of comedy, anybody here like stand-up comedy? Okay. Dave Chappelle said that when this case was decided, it was the most important thing that ever happened to him in the history of the United States. So this stems from a case called Flint versus Falwell. And basically what happened was there was a conservative minister who's also a political activist named Reverend Jerry Falwell, who sued the publisher of Hustler magazine for putting up a pictorial cartoon of Jerry Falwell and insinuating that he engaged in sex with his mother, his drunken mother. Now, he said, you can't do that. That is libel. In other words, your free speech rights doesn't mean, like, for example, I can sue you if you go on social media and you write, hey, Dr. Klein likes to torture golden retriever puppies and is high on crack right now. I can sue you for that, okay? That is not a free speech right. However, the Supreme Court in this case ruled that, believe it or not, Larry Flint, the publisher of Hustler magazine, had the right to publish something that he knew was untrue, okay? So he conceded, we know that's untrue. We know that's false, okay? Because it was done in the spirit of comedy. And that is why you have shows like South Park that can mock political figures, even state untrue things about them. Because as the Supreme Court ruled, the reasonable person on the street would not assume that what that comedian is saying is factual. Now, how many of you heard about what happened to Jimmy Kimmel yesterday? All right. You might say, Dr. Klein, is there a potential change here? Well, something very important. The United States government, nor did somebody sue Jimmy Kimmel for his comments. Jimmy Kimmel was removed as part of a corporate decision. Okay. However, the question is, did the federal government pressure corporations to remove Jimmy Kimmel? Because the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission said, and I quote, "We can do this the hard way or the easy way," insinuating that some kind of pressure from the federal government to impose their views on to censor free speech may have been at play. So what we'll have to see is, will ABC turn around and take this case to court and sue the federal government? It's a very interesting question. If you want to know my humble opinion, the answer will be no, because the FCC is responsible for issuing new broadcasting licenses and, more importantly, approving mergers of corporations. And the players, media corporations, and the players that are involved in the Jimmy Kimmel case are currently involved in a corporate merger application for an FCC license. And that's one of the reasons why some commentators have said that's why the chair of the FCC said that, because he was using it as leverage. And the question is, legally, can he do that? We'll have to see what the courts say if ABC chooses to go to court. Anybody else want to add to that?
I'm just looking at time. And we want to make sure we get to some other amendments. Is this the last I think this is the last free speech question, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so you guys are voting?
Oh, yeah. This is a freedom of religion question.
Can a designer clothing store refuse to hire an employee simply because of her religious head covering? Because her religious head covering violates the store's employee dress code?
Good question.
Can someone be fired or refuse to hire an employee simply because
Either.
of her religious
The question is
head
either.
covering?
Yep.
Okay, so we have 73, 80.
But it's so hard to.
Anybody work for a store that has a very strict dress code? Anybody work for a store? Yeah. All right.
70, 80 said no, 20 said yes.
Well done. The answer is no, they cannot. You cannot be hired or fired. It is actually technically it's a violation of your exercise of freedom of religion. Also, your rights under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which does not allow a private employer to discriminate based upon your religious beliefs. Some of you might be aware of this case. This was the famous Abercrombie and Fitch case. And there is indeed, Professor Wise just told me, and there is a documentary on it. Very, 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 very interesting. So understand something as an employee. Don't automatically, although your employer has lots of rights, you have rights too. So you cannot be discriminated against based on your race, in New York State, federally, based on your race, national origin, religion, or sex. And in employment, by the way, federally, not based on your sexual orientation, based on a recent Supreme Court ruling. And under the state constitution of New York, that applies to other areas of life. For instance, housing, for example.
One thing I'd add, though, as a caveat, is enforcement is difficult. If the store refuses to hire you because they don't want your religious garb or it doesn't comply with their dress code, that's illegal. They have to hire you. But how will you prove that? I think that's an important issue. If they say we're not going to hire you because you can't wear head covering, okay, you've got them.
Yeah.
But
And
they
that's what
might
the
say,
company could say. Yeah.
well, you don't fit our profile, or your qualifications are weak. In that case, you'd have to look to other people who were not hired and see if there's a course of conduct that reveals that they're actually being discriminatory, which can be difficult.
Yep.
So I think, if you're having that hiring conversation, you maybe want to push them to be articulate.
Yep.
So we're going to move on from the First Amendment now to the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized.
Okay.
So, can ICE come to campus or enter an office without a warrant?
Question.
Can ICE come to campus or enter an office without a warrant? So we're gonna, 66 people say no, 24 say yes.
Professor Zwick, will you kindly bring the microphone to yourself and share the answer with our studio audience?
Yes. It's a public space. Our campus is public. Our campus is open. They can come the circus can come, whoever wants to come can come on campus and walk around. Now, can they come into a classroom? No. Can they go, without permission, without authorization, right? Can they come into my office? No. But in terms of most campuses are considered public, certainly ours is. So the answer to that question, the way that it's written, is yes. But they cannot come to my office without a warrant and search my office. And in that case, there's two different types of warrants. There's their administrative warrant, which is usually what they use for civil issues. And then there's a judicial warrant, which is more often used for criminal warrants when they're retrieving someone who has a criminal record.
All right. So we're actually gonna move on. May immigration officials deport a person to his country of birth if that country lacks a functioning central government? It's real time. We'll see a little bit.
Oh, and for those of you who are wondering, the country in question, Somalia.
So we have 68 say yes, 11 say no.
The gang is correct. The answer is yes, even if, and this was interesting in this particular case, the plaintiff in this case, the person who was being deported, was able to show conclusively that Somalia without a government and Somalia, unfortunately, with a government is a very, very, very dangerous place. That did not matter. That was not seen as a reason. And this is going to be this precedent has been actually used in more recent Supreme Court cases in terms of issues of deportation.
So can the police conduct a warrantless search of your trash after leaving it out on your property but designated for pickup and then use the evidence?
So it's on your property, but you're designating it for trash pickup. Because as you know, you don't put it out on the sidewalk because somebody might trip. Oh, it's going to be close. It's going to be close. It's going to be close. Anybody else? Oh.
It's pretty even.
People still voting? 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh my God. In a close match, can the police conduct this search? Yes, they can. The court ruled that the key is your intent was to make your trash public. That the intention was to put it out for public display, even if it is still on your front lawn. Once you designate it for trash pickup, it is free game. Professor Zwick, do you have any experience in this area?
Want to make sure we get to the talk.
Yeah.
I do. I'll just say quickly, on behalf of dumpster divers, those of us who have furnished our houses from what we've pulled out from other people's trash, yes, absolutely. When you get rid of it, you're done. And I did. I have gone through many, many people's trash with gloves. But thank you.
I learned about this through, I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry. It's a 2007 Adam Sandler movie where they go through his trash. 18-year-old me thought, wow, I didn't realize that was.
There's a legal. So we're going to talk about the Sixth Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witness against them, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. If you are convicted of a crime, do you always have the right to know who is accusing you of committing a crime?
Great question. Great question. How many find these questions really intriguing? Yeah.
I'll take some of the half ones that I see in the audience.
Yeah. We're waiting for some more. If you're convicted of a crime, do you always
You have a
have the right to
question.
know who is accusing you? Oh, yeah, option 1 is yeah, sorry, option 2 is no. Didn't catch that. If you are convicted of a crime, do you have the right to know who is accusing you of committing the crime?
If you're accused of.
Is it backwards?
It could be in New York if you're accused.
Yeah.
Is it backwards
It's
if you're
accused.
accused of a crime?
Yeah, it's accused of a crime, I
In
guess.
the state of New York, it's if you're accused.
Yeah, if you're accused of a crime, you have the right to know who's accused.
Okay, so if you're accused, not convicted, if you're accused of a crime, do you have the right to know who is accusing you? All right, so we're at 96, let's see. Oh, it's close again.
Professor Bynes?
Yeah, the answer actually goes back to somewhat connected to the Fifth Amendment of due process law. Due to being a former British colony, we are connected to a lot of concepts from English common law. One of them, when we look at due process, is this idea of that there's a fair amount of, I guess you could say, a process that should be carried out when you're going through the whole court system. You have a right to a trial by jury, which, as we know, is the Seventh Amendment. Part of it is the Sixth Amendment. And when we look at the Sixth Amendment, is the idea that whoever is bringing charges against you, yes, you do have the right to know who is bringing charges against you, even if you're not sure what institution it's coming from, an individual that is raising it against you. So pretty straightforward. Yes, that's sort of a segue amendment from the Fifth Amendment, which is when we go back to due process of law. It's connected to it.
Are on the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So, are you guaranteed citizenship if you were born in the United States and your parents are not US citizens? Yeah, 58 responses. Let's see, we're up to about 80.
Do that, Professor. Oh, that is awesome. Let's give Professor DeBose a big round of applause.
85 at yes, 86, 87, and 10 at no.
The correct answer is yes. I think the biggest confusion that a lot of students of mine have are the executive orders that have been coming out. One of the executive orders we know signed by the Trump administration back in January going into February was that we're looking to, by executive order, remove guaranteed citizenship. What we do know is that lower courts and courts at the different level have been able to actually temporarily put a hold on that executive order, claiming that it is blatantly unconstitutional, is the language that many different judges have ruled at different court levels. So as we're going through the months, there might be a different court in, let's say, New Hampshire that's putting a hold on it, or a court in Arizona that's putting a hold on it. So as of now, the correct answer technically is yes, despite the executive order saying no. This whole idea actually goes back to the 14th Amendment's first clause. Now, the first section of the 14th Amendment is incredibly loaded. We keep going back to it. There's actually a great Netflix documentary on the 14th Amendment. Just within section 1, we have 4 different clauses. Now, when we look at citizenship in particular, we're looking at the first clause of the first section of the 14th Amendment. I know that seems pretty complicated, but it is important because I think what's important with a lot of these laws is historical context. When we look at the 14th Amendment, it was written right after the American Civil War. The Emancipation Proclamation was the 13th Amendment that was signed, that obviously was abolished slavery altogether. But the 14th Amendment was that amendment that naturalized the citizenship of the African-American slaves in the United States. So this was in 1868 that it occurred. And the Trump administration is largely arguing that the context written of naturalized citizenship was just solely for this particular population, the former slave population, to be granted citizenship rights. It was not necessarily meant for anybody to just come here and have a child, and therefore that child would be granted citizenship. However, if you look closer into constitutional history, there's a case in California where it's Wong Kim Ark back in 1988 in California, as a Chinese immigrant whose parents were from China, but he was born in California, I believe in the San Francisco area, and he was successfully granted citizenship because it did actually include the fact that if you are born in this country, you are indeed considered a citizen because you're born on American soil. Now, there's a couple exceptions. For example, if you're the child of a diplomat, you can't necessarily be granted American citizenship. But overall, as of now, the correct answer is yes. It's a that's a different thing. Yeah, you could be
The
granted dual
question for those online was, do you have dual citizenship if you're born in this country and parents were born in a different country?
No, I actually, my partner is from Germany. I have a child with her, and our child's German. That was a whole other process that we had to apply for my son's German and American citizenship. So we had to apply for it. Yeah, it took a couple of years, and it's a lengthy process. Good question. Thank you.
So our next question.
Do we have any more hands? I'm sorry, I
Oh,
didn't.
I didn't see more hands?
No, I think we're good.
Can your right to citizenship at birth be repealed by legislation? So we have so far 18, 40. Can your right to citizenship at birth be repealed by legislation?
That's right.
Let's get a few more folks for up to 75. So
She's good.
55, 58 say no, 29 say yes.
The technical answer, can your right to citizenship be replaced by legislation? Surprisingly, is actually yes. Is it likely? It's highly unlikely. It's not very likely at all. A lot of it would have to be made through another amendment of the Constitution. So it would have to be a 28th Amendment, I believe, is what it would have to be. In which, in that case, not only would you need to have 2/3 support from both chambers in Congress, in the Senate, in the House for this amendment, but you'd also need to have a popular national movement to push for this. And we just don't see that statistically as being something that's desired by the American populace at this point in time. So it's highly unlikely, but technically, yes, but we're not going to see it because I think many judges will look at it and they'll go that it's blatantly unconstitutional. Interesting question, though.
So could you marry someone of the same sex in any state in the United States of America? Ooh, we're already seeing it's pretty close. I'm gonna actually, I'll leave it. Could you marry someone of the same sex in any state in the United States of America?
In any state.
All right, I think we have enough. We've got 90 answering. 57 say no, 34 say yes.
Professor Byes?
Could you marry someone of the same sex in any state in the United States? The answer right now is technically yes, you are protected to do so. That is based off of when we look at the Supreme Court's ruling of Obergefell v. Hodges back in 2015. It was the idea of looking at particularly the Fifth Amendment, which is a Bill of Rights-based amendment. We just went over civil liberties in class. I see some of my students in here. We just discussed this, so sorry if you're hearing this little spiel again. But when we look at same-sex marriage, there were two different clauses within the 14th Amendment that addressed this issue. The first was the third clause. The third clause is called the Due Process Clause, which includes the right to privacy. You have the right to intimate relations with whoever you want. It's not the government's business to necessarily intrude on that. It was on that reasoning, along with the reasoning of the fourth clause within the 14th Amendment. Now, the fourth clause is Equal Protection Clause. It is within the Equal Protection Clause that it's inherently unequal to not grant marriage rights to those who are same-sex couples. So Clause 3, which is the Due Process Law, that's within the Fifth Amendment, is actually what I call an embedded amendment. It's an amendment that is embedded within the 14th Amendment. So it's kind of a mixture of a civil liberties amendment and a civil rights amendment when you look at it. So it's an incredibly intricate amendment when we look at it that way. So the correct answer is yes, due to clauses 3 and clauses 4 as of now.
Question left. Right, does one have the right to abortion in all 50 states? Does one have the right to abortion in all 50 states? So we are seeing real time, the vast majority of folks say no.
Professor Byes?
The correct answer, I see that 78 of you, 79.
Say yeah.
Going north, 79 of you are correct. the interesting about it is we have to go back to, once again, the 14th Amendment. We have to go back to the due process clause. Now, when we utilize the logic of the due process clause in the previous question regarding to same-sex marriage, once again, we go back to the right of privacy, the understanding of that. Now, when it comes to abortion rights or when it comes to reproductive health care, a lot of these things, according to the Supreme Court's, when we look at Dobbs and Jackson in 2022, they argued that there's nothing mentioned in the Constitution that speaks to women's reproductive health care. There's nothing within it in terms of right to privacy. And in addition to that, is nothing that would ever be considered by the founding fathers, who culturally would not see it as being something that would even be addressed at that time. And I think what's important about this idea is the Supreme Court that made the decision in 2022 are what we call traditionalist-based judges. We have traditionalists and interpretivists. Now, I feel oftentimes when we think about our Supreme Court judges in the media, they often declare them as being conservative and liberal. Now, a lot of that is true, but we have to keep in mind that our Supreme Court justices are supposed to be married to the United States Constitution. Therefore, do they interpret the Constitution word for word verbatim as they read it? Or do they interpret it in a lens in which it's a better lens suited for 2025 America? Throughout our history, we've had different justices, some that have been more traditionalist versus some courts and benches that have been a little bit more on the interpretivist side. As of now, we have what I would call a heavy traditionalist-based Supreme Court. When they read the Supreme Court, they're looking at it word for word verbatim for what it means. Now, when we look at the due process clause back with same-sex marriage back in 2015, it was much more even. We had some interpreters on the bench. We had some traditionalists on the bench. However, due to the recent appointees that we have on the Supreme Court, it's largely traditionalist, and it's being reflected in the decisions that are being made in the Supreme Court, including when we look at the rights to abortion. So it depends on the state you're in. It has been determined overall that it is a states' rights-based issue. It's not necessarily made illegal, but it is an issue that could be made illegal depending on whatever state you live in. That was the official ruling of the court. So as of now, it is no. With the same logic of this due process clause, it just shows you that this Constitution we have is an elastic document. And due to its elasticity, as much as it's nice to add on to it, what could be a challenge is inconsistency. You could have certain benches that are more traditional, some that are more interpretivist, and they can go back and actually change rulings that could have a profound effect on millions of Americans. So the answer as of now is no. Do we have any?
By the way, a student last year asked me, does the Supreme Court have to follow its own decisions that it made previously? Is there any? And the answer is no, it does not. So bear that in mind. They can't say, well, isn't that against the law? Because the Supreme Court ruled one way 10 years ago or 20 years ago. The answer is not. The answer is no. Bear that in mind.
To close to the end of our time, but we have some resources for you all. So I'm going to welcome Professor Williams back up. She's going to talk a little bit.
This was awesome. Let's give our panelists a round.
And give yourselves a big round of applause. You guys did great. And let's also thank the amazing Jose Chavez for making the technology fantastic.
So civic engagement is critical. And so we wanted to be sure to connect you to the library resources. And even if you have not registered, we want to make sure that you have the information on how to do that. We know that Election Day is Tuesday, November the 4th. So we want you to scan the QR code and there's information there for you. It is on the college's website. Our library has that. Excuse me. And we have experienced another amazing and incredible information and informative program. It is so important to take a moment to thank our participants. We want to thank Dr. Miles, Dr. Morest, our faculty expert panelists, our moderator, Dr. DeVoe, Dr. Klein, Dr. Zwick, Dr. Baez, and did I say Dr. Hancock? Attorney Hancock? Yeah. Okay. We certainly need a special thank you to Jose Chavez, our event technician, the others, Creative Communications, and all others who have assisted with our program today. You all are simply amazing, And it was my honor and privilege to work on the logistics for this event.
So are you, Jolene Williams. Let's give her a big round of applause, huh?
So if you're not registered to vote, we're gonna leave the QR code up so we make sure.
That's how you can defend the Constitution right there with your votes. That's your power. That's your formal power.
Say that, repeat what you just said.
That's how you can defend the Constitution with your votes.
If you are
Formal.
here for a Zwick class, please, there's a sign-in sheet going around. Please make sure you find it. There you go. There's the sign-in sheet. Please make sure you sign in so I can mark you.
For my class, please text me.